Doctor. All right, to continue our session today, I'd like to invite a speaker who already has brought Owen up on stage, our very own chairman, Dr. Sherman Valero.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ken. And I'd like to thank Renzi for that very exhaustive discussion. No? It covers a lot of my what I'm supposed to talk about, so we can get to the meat of the matter. Let me just. Kumakita. Wait, I cannot see. Where? All right. Okay. So now that Renzi has talked about, introduced the concept of conflicts of interest in healthcare, no, I'd like to attempt to discuss some ways to manage conflicts of interest. No, I am by no means an expert, as Renzi has said. I am a lifelong learner as well, and I am also in my own journey in trying to manage my own conflicts of interest in my profession. So, unlike Renzi, I have a long list of disclosures. Hindi naman long. No? So, these are my disclosures. I'm a consultant, investigator, and speaker for the following companies, none of which individually has anything to do with this topic. But collectively, you have to know that I have financial ties with these pharmaceutical industries. So, one way it gives me some sort of experience on how to manage conflict of interest. And two, it also shows you that I have challenges as well in my own personal journey in this matter. No? So let's start with a little bit of a scenario. This happens very regularly in our department conferences. No? When we organize our department conference, we ask a sponsor, oh, can you sponsor our conference naman? And they usually sometimes they have a suggestion for their speaker. No? Now you are that recognized expert. You were invited to be a guest speaker by an industry partner for a department conference. The topic is directly related to the product of the event sponsor, and the sponsor will pay you an honorarium, which they usually do. No? Sometimes you are required to use the slides prepared by the sponsors. What will you do? Accept gladly. It's a great opportunity. No? Decline because of possible bias, or C, not sure. No? Think about your initial reaction and just choose. No, just pick what feels right. Don't overthink it. All right. If your answer was A, accept gladly, you run the risk of bias. No, both actual or perceived. No, it doesn't have to be an actual bias. It can just be a perceived bias. That can lead to trust issues with your audience. No? B, you avoid the risk entirely. No? Ayoko niyan kasi may bias. No? But you also limit your opportunities. Limit the opportunities for the exchange of ideas, for teaching, no, for learning, for career advancement, which again is not inherently bad. No? Or C, you don't know. So you're in luck. That's why you're here, to learn how to approach this situation. Okay, so this was already mentioned by Renzi, no? A conflict of interest in healthcare is a situation where a person, organizations, professional decisions could be influenced by secondary interests. No? Simply put, when what's best for your patient might compete with what's best for you. Okay? Again, COI is not inherently about corruption. No? It's not inherently a sin. It's about situations where your decision making could be affected. Not always affected, could be affected. That's why you need to learn how to recognize it and how to mitigate it. Because it can be affected. Patients' trust can be affected. So the significance of conflict of interest is, again, it can influence your decision making, public trust, and research integrity. That could, pag minamalas ka, lead to poor results such as compromised outcomes, ethical breaches, and reputational harm. So conversely, the importance of managing COI ensures that clinical decisions prioritize the patient and public welfare. Okay? And it promotes ethical research and unbiased education. And it maintains trust in both you, the profession, and the institutions that you serve. Now we'll go through some key policies for managing COI. Now you can use one, you can use all, you can use a combination of them, depending on what the situation requires. But you need to know them in order to use them. And these are prohibition, restriction, disclosure, and self-regulation. Okay. Now, prohibition is defined as an outright ban on certain practices or relationships that present a high risk of actual or perceived conflict of interest. Andiyan na naman tayo, actual or perceived. It doesn't have to be real, no? If your patient thinks or if your audience thinks, may bias si Dr. Valero, that already affects trust, no? That the aim is to remove any possibility that professional judgment can be influenced or appear to be influenced by secondary interests, no? It is the strictest form of conflict of interest management. If it's on the prohibited list, this can be now given by your hospital, your professional organization, or by yourself. If it's on your prohibited list, you simply cannot engage in it. As simple as accepting gifts, accepting trips, accepting travel perks, no? Kung nilagay mo siya sa no list mo, hindi mo siya gagawin, no? And even if you believe that these decisions won't affect these perks won't affect your decision, no? Prohibiting it, hindi pa rin siya kasama. So that's the strictest form, no? Examples, prohibiting healthcare professionals from accepting gifts from pharmaceutical companies. A lot of hospitals, especially in the West, have instituted a zero-gift policy already. Bawal. Hindi ka talaga pwedeng tumanggap kahit ballpen, no? Or you can ban financial ties between physicians and pharmaceutical companies, no? The point isn't to punish physicians, but to protect trust, no? Avoiding any practice that can be perceived as bias. Okay? In my personal experience, I was lucky enough that when I finished my fellowship, it was a time na maraming advances in retina. So I got invited to a lot of experts meetings, a lot of advisory boards, a lot of research investigators meetings. So tanggap ako ng tanggap nun. So I was starting my practice. I got invited internationally to lectures and it really parang promoted my practice. But when I became president of PAO and VRSP concurrently, I stopped everything. I stopped accepting any of those financial relationships. Bakit? Maraming issues yun. The position carries weight. Now, if I feel that it is affecting the position, kasi it might be perceived as Dr. Valero has favorites among the pharmaceutical industries. Medyo mahirap yun pag nag-organize ka ng Congress. No? Two, I was so busy that I didn't have time na himayin every situation. So maybe out of laziness, sinabi ko, wag na lang. Hindi na ako tatanggap ng kahit ano. Okay. So that went on until I finished my presidency and a year or two after. No? So I did not want to appear to have preferential relationships to any of the pharmaceutical industries. No? So that happened when I was president. And then when I stopped no, meron na kulit na relationship. So again, by disclosure, I have financial interests in some of the pharmaceutical industries. No? Now, the benefit of prohibition is that it is simple. It's clear and easy to enforce. Ang bawal, bawal. No? It removes both actual and perceived bias kasi hindi mo talaga siya gagawin. And it strengthens institutional and personal credibility. But it may be seen as too restrictive. Wala akong activity noon. So I did not have any activities to learn with, meeting other experts. No? I did not have any activities that I could teach, no, because wala nga akong ganung relationships. And it potentially limits beneficial interactions and collaborations. Now, the next is restriction. Restriction is a little less restrictive than prohibition. It limits certain activities or relationships to reduce the risk of conflict of interest. Okay? Example, allowing educational sponsorships, but you cap the monetary amount and you require disclosure. Okay? Papayag ka na, sige, sponsor niyo ako for a trip, but the hospital would say, up only to a certain amount. No? I think our pharmaceutical industries actually have their own compliance rules na meron din cap sila. No? But you can also apply a personal cap for you. No? Or you can restrict physicians with financial interests in certain drugs or devices from influencing procurement decisions in hospitals. And you require that any research funding from industry be overseen by an independent committee. A personal example for this one is that when I became chair of Makati Med, no, I did not participate in procurement processes. No. Hindi ako pwedeng bigay ng opinion. All I can do is do the final signature kasi kailangan yun. So I let my other consultants, other stakeholders like iCenter staff, even residents, to evaluate the machine, the technology, and the medicine. And then I do the final signature, whatever their recommendation is. And then the only additional thing I can do is try to get a better deal. No? But the decision itself, medyo malayo ako. Hindi ako masyadong involved doon. Okay? The benefits are that it balances flexibility with risk mitigation, and it can be tailored to specific situations. But it still requires continuous monitoring and enforcement. The problem is who monitors, who enforces. No? And it may not completely eliminate bias. Now, disclosure, this is what I was talking about earlier, no? Yung slide mo. No? I would encourage you that from here on in, whenever you listen to a speaker in a podium, may disclosure slide, tingnan yung mabuti. No? Hindi lang yabang yun ng speaker, hindi lang yabang na ang dami kong disclosures. No? It is for your benefit so that you know what affects, what could possibly affect what the speaker is talking about. Okay? Fortunately, I am a consultant for all the major anti-VEGF. So pare-pareho lang sila. So parang nabawasan ng konti yung bias ko. No? It requires individuals to reveal potential conflicts to relevant stakeholders. In this case, the audience. No? So examples include physicians disclosing financial relationships with drug companies to stakeholders, no? Researchers disclosing funding resources, funding sources and financial interest in their publications. A lot of the research that we do is funded by industry. No? It's funded by our pharmaceutical partners. Walang mangyayari sa atin kung hindi siya fina-fund ng industry. Kaya let us be very clear on that. I am not against it. What drives innovation is actually industry, for better or for worse. Ang importante dito is that when we publish the paper, we say this is funded by, let's say, Novartis. This is funded by whoever. No? Para alam ng audience, alam na nagbabasa ng journal na may potential conflict of interest, and we leave it up to you to judge. No? And then there's also industry disclosing relevant agency financial relationships with physicians for public knowledge. This hasn't happened here yet. This is already happening in the States with the Physician Sunshine Act, whereby all drug companies are required to declare how much they give to individual doctors. It is reported to a website called openpaymentsdata.cms.gov. No? So a patient or a colleague can go into that website and look, okay, Dr. Ray Santos is receiving this much from this company and this company and this company. It is now up to you to judge whether this may affect the decision of that particular doctor. Okay? Now, the benefits is that it promotes transparency kasi ikaw yung nagsasabi. No? It allows stakeholders to make informed decisions. But the problem here is that the onus is on the stakeholders. No? Disclosure alone does not mitigate the conflict. Sinabi mo lang siya. Binibigay mo pa rin yung decision to the other stakeholders. And it relies on the integrity and completeness of disclosures. Congresses are being more strict about this already, especially international congresses. You really have to declare your conflicts of interest. No? Kailangan ka mag-sign ng disclosure form when you are going to lecture internationally. Now, the last is self-regulation. No? It encourages professionals and organizations to voluntarily adhere to higher and stricter ethical standards and conflict of interest policies. Examples, individual ophthalmologists adopting personal ethical standards when dealing with pharmaceutical companies. No? healthcare institutions developing internal policies for managing COI, and professional associations setting ethical guidelines for their members. Makati Medical Center has their own internal policies for managing COI. You have to sign a document. No? Personally, I do have some what do you get? Regulation for myself. No? In terms of congresses and meetings, I do not accept free registration to Congress to meetings that I can access on my own, like APAO, yung mga ganyan. You can register that for that on your own naman. I say yes though, by disclosure, I say yes to meetings that I could not otherwise access as a regular person, which are KOL meetings, which are expert circles or investigators meetings. I feel that since wala akong magiging access doon, if not for this invitation, I will accept that. But for congresses, usually I don't. Well, I haven't accepted in such a long time. No? That is a personal self-regulation. No? I am not saying that you do that, but that is where my comfort level is. Okay? So, the benefits of self-regulation is that it fosters a culture of ethical behavior. Again, you are a work in progress. So, dine-develop mo ito. No? You allow for flexibility and adaptability. No? So, not all meetings I say no to. There are certain meetings I say yes to. But it is difficult to monitor and enforce kasi wala naman nagbabantay. There's potential for non-compliance. If no one is watching, if I didn't tell you that, I can always change my mind. No? And it relies on the strength and enforcement of self-regulatory mechanisms. So yung kanina kay Renzi may bullseye, ako may defense layers. No? Defense layers to for mitigating conflicts of interest. No? Prohibition, parang concentric circles yan. Parang yung Iron Dome sa Israel. No? Prohibition blocks the highest risks. Restriction controls medium risk. Disclosure makes the risk visible. And self-regulation develops your internal compass. Now, you can use this alone, each one alone, in combination with each other, or all together. No? Medyo mahirap lang i-use yung prohibition with the others kasi prohibition outright ban na yun. No? Now, let's just have some sample cases. I think I still have time. No? Case study 1, a physician is asked to be a consultant or a speaker for a pharmaceutical company. How would the different methodologies result? What would they result to? Prohibition, say your institution prohibits any financial relationship with the drug companies, or you yourself prohibit it. You cannot accept, period, hard stop, wala nang problema. Okay? Restriction, you say, I can consult and speak but cannot be part of the therapeutics committee. Yan yung rule ng hospital mo. Okay? Disclosure, the physician discloses the relationship to the audience, like what I'm doing now. No? And self-regulation, the physician follows ethical guidelines from a professional organization, like the PAO or the PMA. Case 2, a researcher receiving funding from an industry sponsor. This is very common. No? How does prohibition work? Hindi pwede. Okay? The institution says, no, we will not allow this. Okay? Restriction means the funding is allowed, but it will be seen by the IRB. No? Titingnan nila, i-approve nila, at sasabihin nila kung ano yung pwede at hindi pwede. And disclosure means the researcher will disclose all funding sources in all publications and in all lectures. And self-regulation, the researchers adhere to guidelines from a research ethics board. And case number 3, similar to what I talked about earlier, a hospital is deciding on a vendor for phaco machines. No? Prohibition, the hospital will ban physicians with financial ties to vendors from participating in the procurement decisions. Hindi talaga pwede. Restriction is you allow them to provide input but under very strict oversight. And disclosure, you require the physicians to disclose any financial ties to vendors. And self-regulation, the hospital will establish their own independent procurement committees. Okay? So, Conclusions, no, the responsibility lies with individual practitioners, institutions, and professional organizations to uphold ethical standards for the benefit of patients and the profession. No? A commitment to ethical conflict of interest management strengthens the integrity of the profession and ensures trust in the healthcare system and also in you. And I leave you with this slide. No? Transformation is not a destination. It is a journey of continuous growth and self-discovery. We are all a work in progress. This does not happen overnight. We will stumble along the way, but we have our friends and our colleagues to guide us, and you can always ask around. No? But it is something that we need to do constantly, and that is to develop our moral compass. These are my references. Thank you very much. And please attend the APVRS. Thank you.